Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Oh man, oh man, oh man. Look at these markets. Holy moly. It's a green day, ladies and gentlemen. It feels like it was only yesterday we were looking at the charts waiting for things to break out. Oh, wait, it was just yesterday when we did the live stream. Welcome, my friends. It's an interesting point here in this market as we will cover. I'm going to be looking at a few things, long-term charts, but near-term action just is hot. The market continues to rock. The big cap names are leading the way up, which is very nice. Has made for some great trading over the last day, over the last couple of weeks, but over the last day especially, just a lot of big cap names. So we will go over all of that. I will go over some small caps. Mostly going to be covering the big cap stuff here today. Let me post this link here real quick. But let's get to it. So wouldn't say I have a hard cap, but I am going to limit the stream today to about a half an hour. And so it will be a relatively quick stream compared to many of my other streams. So gonna give it a minute or two here, let some more folks come in. It was a little bit of an impromptu stream. Essentially this is just kind of my market update. I was gonna post a video, kind of end of day video recap, but then I figured let's just do live stream here, get a little bit of interaction, some questions maybe, and we'll go from there. So just wild stuff here. Let me pull up the Node Insider's site there. That is, of course, showing strong across the board, just as we saw today. Most of the names here pop in. The Bitcoin forks are all in vogue. Bitcoin SV, Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin Diamond, Bitcoin Gold, Bitcoin everything, Bitcoin. But look at the list here. This is what we generally like to see. The trending names are all big cap names, right? You have ETH on the list, you have Dash, Litecoin, Ant, Neo, so just good stuff. EOS has had a very nice move versus Bitcoin, finally breaking out. And a lot of the names we've been on watching here lately anyway, just kind of have been on the radar, but very nice to see. So let's start with BTC here first. So looking at Bitcoin as I speak, it is very quickly approaching $8,900. Breaking past that $8,600 level very quickly. Let me go to this chart, my marked up chart here, because this is what I want to really point out. This was the major price point that I've been watching, and we are approaching that here as we speak here. So if we zoom out, I have a couple of things that I've marked up on here. Covered this yesterday in the live stream if you were with me, so bear with the potential repetitiveness here, but there's this broader lower trend line and of course this upper trend line. There's also a horizontal price resistance here going across this $9,100 level, give or take, right? It's a little bit of a zone which I've highlighted here in this blue box. And this is an interesting intersection of several potential resistance levels to be watching. One, it's that horizontal price resistance, which may be significant. Back here, if we look at the July, September period, basically those summer months after the peak in June of 2019, this $9,400 to $9,100 was a significant support zone that just would not breach, held several times as it formed this big descending triangle, and then it broke, and then we saw a rally, couldn't quite get past that point. It did briefly, certainly wicked over, but it just couldn't muster much of a follow through above that level, and then we saw that finally roll over to the downside, make a new relative low here, and we're bouncing right back to that. Now I must say the volume here is certainly very strong. It's great volume, looking awesome, but this will be an interesting test to see if price can finally get back above this resistance confluence. There's also the 200-day moving average, which is this white line here, which we've seen start to curl around, and notice where it is right now. It's right where that resistance intersects here, and so you have a confluence of different levels. You got the 200-day moving average, you've got the downtrend line, you've got the horizontal price resistance line. This is also a Fibonacci retracement level. If we look at the wick to wick here, if we go to the most recent move, that 40% 2-day move that we saw here in October, the top of that wick around 10,500, the bottom that we saw here in December around 6,400, the 618 retracement basically takes you to around 9K. And so another very interesting intersection of several resistance levels to be watching. So not saying that's going to be the top, but as a trader, from a near-term perspective, I am certainly getting a lot more cautious as we approach that zone. Doesn't necessarily mean that's a great place to go short and all that good stuff. I mean, you could if you were aggressive, but certainly locking in some gains, protecting some profits is certainly something I'm going to start doing here as we approach this level. And it's just, I mean, there's no way around it. It's certainly extended from a very near-term perspective. You look at the 1-hour RSI, has been way up here. The 4-hour RSI is well into the 80s now. And so by all technical perspectives, certainly starting to approach some overbought conditions. The daily, granted, has room to run from an RSI perspective, not extremely overbought. And again, it's also day one off this breakout, coming off a very nice ascending triangle breakout, which we were watching yesterday. It was probably more of a symmetrical pattern. That's what we were looking at here, just because it had this pullback. But we saw here yesterday, this was a nice little setup, good breakout setup, getting ready to go. As I stated yesterday, it certainly could have broken to the downside. It was a little bit more symmetrical, but the broader momentum was favoring the bull case, and that's exactly what we saw here today. Powerful breakout to the upside, big volume. But the fun thing about all of this here is yesterday we saw this starting to edge out. And the alts did take a little bit of a pullback. Many of the big cap names held up, and today we're seeing the big cap names outperform Bitcoin on the way up, which is fantastic. We haven't seen that in a while. It's generally been Bitcoin goes up, the alts tank, Bitcoin goes down, the alts tank, and with the exception of a few outliers, we haven't seen this across the board strong alt movement while Bitcoin goes up. And this is, I mean, you couldn't have asked for better from a crypto perspective. If we look at the Bitcoin dominance chart, this is what we like to see here once it loads. We want to see the price of Bitcoin go up while the Bitcoin dominance chart drops. That's what every alt trader wants to see, every crypto enthusiast, trader, investor, what do you want to call it, wants to see. Because what this means is the altcoin market is booming even as the price of Bitcoin is going up. So this is fantastic news from that perspective. And it's evident in the numbers today. If you look at some of the bigger moves here today, I mean, Bitcoin Cash, which was a very nice move, far exceeded expectations, to be honest with you. It was probably my top watch setup yesterday. Started to load up on it even pre-breakouts, and then it had the preliminary breakout in the afternoon, pause, and then today just really got going. And even after the breakout, at the peak today was up about 26%. That's 26% plus BTC's move, right? So keep in mind that this is whatever Bitcoin did plus that amount. So it's outperforming Bitcoin by that factor. So very powerful move there. If we look at Bitcoin Cash from the USD side, it's going to show a much stronger move because Bitcoin has also gone up while this one has continued to rally here. So if you look at it from yesterday's breakout, up about 23%, 29% at the peak, just from that breakout point. And the official breakout point was really down here. So, 30, 40% move, depending on at what point you got in. So this was a nice continuation move. And again, this afternoon made for a nice little bit of a scalp trade here. If you're looking at those quick trades, very clean pullback right to those moving averages and then popped right off here. But the big question is it time to start moving some chips off the table here, to start getting a little bit more conservative? Or is this the beginning of a much longer sustained move, right? And that's the question everyone's asking. The volume here on Bitcoin Cash is just extreme. I mean, it's super high. These are the kind of moves that I generally like to scale out of into and then wait for them to, you know, take a breather and pause. Rarely do I get out the exact top. Never do I get in at the exact bottom. But these are the kind of moves where I just say, hey, if I've had that, you know, good of a move in such a short time, I'm just not going to complain and start taking some of the gains, especially if, you know, if you're looking at margin trades and that sort of thing. This is where I'll start taking off all the leverage and then maybe let a core part ride for a little bit more. But no doubt about it, extended. And you look at just where the prices come from in just a number of weeks, right? I mean, if you look at just stair stepping its way up, even from this move that we saw back here at the start of January, it was $193. And here we are today peaking almost double that price, right, up 80%. So fantastic move. It is important to note, going back to the BCH BTC chart, that was also a big breakout over the, not that one here, I'll go to Coinbase because they still have the history, but that was a big breakout on the daily chart, and we covered that yesterday, this significant base that was being formed. And look at multi-month, I mean, this was going back to basically July, and for several months it attempted to clear this level, that 332 level, and failed, and then yesterday we saw it pausing for a few days just below that level, and look at what happened when it finally breaks out. Explosive move right through that level, clearing multiple resistance levels, almost getting to the next target in one fell swoop. I mean, just an incredibly powerful move to the upside. Next major resistance was around that, you know, 435 level, and we came very close to that 42 today. And so just very big volume on the way up. So no doubt that was a powerful breakout, but I am certainly booking some of that here personally, just because, hey, that was pretty much the, I mean, those kind of trades just make the week. You know, don't need to get too greedy from a trading perspective, but very nice move on that perspective. Another one was ETH. ETH was a laggard, and we were looking at that one today, and I actually posted this chart here on the Slack group saying, hey, this is a nice double bottom. There was a couple of things that I liked about it here. Had that reversal earlier today. It's kind of hard to see, but there was this line in the sand that I had notated, and I said, this is really the level that I like. If it can recapture that, it's looking good. And sure enough, within a few hours, ETH decided to join the party, and that double bottom played out very quickly. But it was a good setup there, a low risk reversal, right? You had the bullish divergence showing up on both the MACD and the RSI. My two targets on the trade were this neckline. Let me go back to the 4 hour. The first target was this neckline here around 187, and then my next target was around that 195, 196 level. And we very quickly went to that first target. It's pausing there now above that 195, but certainly was a nice little setup there, and just followed suit along with the rest of the crowd. Litecoin continues to march higher, holding its ground versus Bitcoin. If you look at the daily chart, this one has already been in play since last week and just continuing upward with the rest of the crowd there. Next target up is around that 7,000 sat level. See if we can get there before Bitcoin decides to pull back here a little bit. Bitcoin BSV has just gone insane. I wish I could have shorted it at the top of that wick, to be honest with you, but I mean, it's still marching higher. Just these crazy wicks here. Let me move that wick out of the way because it just messes everything up. Whoops. Here we go. But I mean, just look at this insane move pulling up. Things are getting really volatile up here near the highs, I've noticed. Today, even in Bitcoin, you saw a very quick spike down, which I actually was short going into that for a scalp. I thought it would look a little bit extended near term, but it was just so volatile. Very quick spike down in the 5 minutes, very quick spike back up, and things have just been very, not choppy, but things are getting a little bit volatile here near the highs, and it tends to be what happens when you start to see a little bit of distribution. You get those panic moves in and out of the market. So very big moves here. Another big spike here. Starting to see some divergences show up on these lower time frames. If you look at the 30 minutes, starting to show up a little bit there. as the volume kicks in here near the highs. Going back to some of these others very quickly, BCH, BTC, some divergence showing up here as well near the highs. So just something to make note of. Could start seeing the exhaustion kicking in, the buying momentum slowing down here a little bit. You know, doesn't mean it always turns tail and comes all the way back down, but they're definitely due for a breather. These are just extended by any means on the shorter time frames. On the daily charts, like I said, it just depends on what your strategy is and how much room you're willing to give it. But shorter time frames, all that stuff, the red flags are starting to show up. And so I'm getting cautious. I'm tightening the stops / taking profits and going to see how this plays out. Bitcoin, nice move up, but look at this on the 30-minute. That RSI is just starting to drift. MACD is starting to drift. And so just one to keep an eye on. The trend is your friend. It's still trending higher. The moving averages are moving up. There's no sell signals from a price perspective just yet. It hasn't quite turned. But when it does, they tend to happen very quickly. And so just make note of that. I personally, I mean, if I was not in right now, I'm not so sure I'd be chasing it right here. I know there's a lot of FOMO. This move has caught a lot of people up by surprise. But, I mean, you got to be patient. Wait for a better risk-reward entry point on any of these names that are really extended. The Bitcoin Cash names, even Bitcoin here going into this major resistance level, which I outlined. You know, from a risk reward perspective, these are not ideal places to initiate fresh positions. You know, if you're already in a position from a trade perspective, then, you know, sure, you can ride it, let it run as long as it can, scale out, scale in. But loading the boat here or doing margin, I'd be very cautious of that, or I'd be trading it and not, you know, not stepping away until I had a little bit of wiggle room. But that's just me. So I'm a little bit more cautious here, to be honest with you. I'm actually starting to scale out, and I'm just going to see how this one plays out from a near-term perspective, especially going into this little bit of a resistance. Now, you could see that spike, similar to how we saw back here, where it was just an insane move. It lasted a number of hours, but it just kind of goes straight up and then straight down. A little bit of a short squeeze even. If people are starting to short into this level, you could get that quick squeeze that just pops right over 94, 9,500. But I'm looking at it more from a, does it hold above that level, right? In terms of this big picture, looking at that resistance level, I'm not looking so much as does it wick above or below and nope, I was wrong or right. Or I'm looking at it more from, you know, can it start to hold above 9K and really sustain that and consolidate above that before taking off? If it does, I mean, ideally from a bull case perspective, that's what we want to see, right? You want to see this thing kind of rally and maybe consolidate here near this level and then start another leg higher. That'd be an exceptional setup for the longer term picture. Would really start to confirm the turning of the longer term trend, which we technically haven't really confirmed yet. You're still technically making a lower high. If it would to pause right here, this would still be a lower high. And so the bigger term trend has not been confirmed. Doesn't mean you can't take a shot at it or anything. It's been a nice setup. And in fact, you know, we were all looking at this big reversal pattern forming over November and December, and that certainly has played out beautifully here as we've seen this big breakout over the last couple of days. But today has been stellar, powerful move. Looking at a couple others real quickly. EOS moving up nicely. I know my friend Herman on the line here has been on this one, looking at this one, breaking out. Beautiful move again. Another one just like Bitcoin Cash. Big volume coming in right as it breaks over that multi-month base. So from the longer term perspective, the alts, especially the big cap names, this is very positive. To see Bitcoin Cash, EOS, Ethereum start to outperform Bitcoin even as it goes up. And they're due. They're well overdue for some reprieve from this massive dump that they've seen for the last year. I mean, if you look at these names, right, ETH, just brutal charts versus Bitcoin. They're well overdue for something more than a couple of days of rally. Maybe we're starting to see that happen. Fingers crossed, cautiously optimistic. Litecoin, again, looking pretty good there. Some other big cap names popping. NEO is one we were looking at. Edging out of range versus Bitcoin. Let's see if that one can continue. Ontology, still reversing there. I'm going to cycle through here. What were some of the other names on the list here? We looked at ETH, EOS, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, Dash. Dash had a big move here, continues to push higher, but it's mostly been the bigger cap names. It's going to be interesting to see if we see the typical cycle, right? What tends to happen is you get the big cap names moving, and then that starts to trickle down, and then the little mid caps start to show some life as some of that cycles out, and then eventually it ends with, you know, the micro cap and then the crap coins are us rally, where everything that's just junk names are rallying. And so that's where I'm going to be watching to see where the rotation starts to take place. But for now, it's been a big cap land. Dash is probably the winner in terms of the, well, I would say Bitcoin Cash SV, and then Dash. You know, these are all about the same in terms of the move that they've had here over the last week or two. You know, in the 70-80% move. Bitcoin Cash SV probably the biggest percentage point move there. But not to throw water on the party here, but just keep in mind, I mean, this is coming off of the back of an insane move down too, right? It's like, you know, oops, not that one there. This one here, right? I mean, Dash was down 93-94%. Now it's only down 86%. But if you were lucky enough to accumulate, buy the dip for whatever reason, then you've had a nice move. But you don't have to call the exact bottom, as I said before, right? You look for those reversal signals, you get those pullback entries, those make for better risk reward, and then you catch the next leg up and still makes for a fantastic trade. BAT has had a nice couple of days here. Looking at BAT reversing off the bottom, big power pivot on the daily, couple of good 4-hour candles here with volume coming in right at some near-term resistance here, clearing that. So BAT is looking good as well. And this is what I'm looking for, some of that rotation, right? You got the big cap names. When they start to take a breather, does everything go back to BTC or pause, or does it start to move into some of these other names like, you know, BAT and Link and, you know, 0x and some of those other names that are kind of the favorites here. And ZRX is actually one that certainly has tried to push up today and still testing that resistance level, but definitely one to be watching. Zcash, again, just has already been on a tear, moving higher. But all in all, good stuff here. Bitcoin dominance dropping a little bit here. If we zoom out, you know, we were watching this big setup here. It was looking like Bitcoin was getting ready to take another leg higher in terms of BTC dominance. And then here today, the big spike lower as the big cap names show their resilience. Finally. It's been a long time since we've looked at the alts moving in tandem with Bitcoin here. All right, let's see here. But like I said, is it time to take profits? That's really what I was wanting to say here today. I would just be cautious here personally. I personally would not initiate fresh positions at these levels if I weren't already in. But I'm also looking at some near-term divergences starting to show up here on the lower time frames. And hey, if you get these kind of moves, these big wicks higher, there's nothing wrong with taking a little bit off the table there and locking in some games from a trading perspective. If your strategy is more longer term and you're looking at daily and weekly charts, then from a near-term perspective, you really don't care about if something is overbought on the 1 hour or the 4-hour charts. But you know, I certainly do look at those time frames because, you know, I do a little bit more heavy trading. I'll use margin from time to time, and so I have to factor all that in. And for me, I mean, a 20% move in a day, especially if it's on margin, is worth taking some gains on. And so that's why I certainly make note of those shorter term signals there. What else is moving here? Let's go look at this real quick. Looking at the bot status, let's let that load and refresh here. Things have switched finally out of the sea of red and into a little bit more of a stronger setting here. Looking at this from this perspective, the stronger names: ETH, Litecoin, EOS, Bitcoin Cash, Neo, Dash, no surprise there. Tezos, Atom still showing weak signals here. Monero, BAT finally pushing out of red into yellow. IOTA, Link, Cardano bullish. XRP, let's see how those look. I haven't looked at the Cardano chart in a little bit here. Cardano, wow, look at that nice big shakeout here today and reversing higher. A little bit of a bullish engulfing candle on that daily. Big wick down. That's crazy to see those. But it is breaking out above some near-term resistance. Very good to see that finally showing some life. Let's see if that can continue to follow through to the upside there. XRP. Maybe Cardano is the next one to run finally. ETH is finally playing catch-up, so that's good there. XRP, not quite as strong yet. It is showing some little bit of green action here along with the rest of the markets. XLM, about the same there. FOMO, everyone, let's get wrecked. I know, right? Bitcoin Gold, I know. Let's go look at that BTG. Oh, man. Remember those names? Bitcoin Gold. Good Lord. Bitcoin Gold. Oh, look at that breakout. That was a beautiful breakout here from this setup earlier today. Pop. Bitcoin Gold. Bitcoin Diamond. Hey, like we said, man, the Bitcoin forks are in vogue today. They have been for the last couple of days, but man, oh man. Let's see here. I'm looking at the comments real quick. As I said, this is going to be a relatively quick stream. I figured I would just be doing my market update live here with you guys. And let's see if we catch the BTC dumpage. Ay, ay, ay. Good times. 87.25. Hey, it hit 88.87. Not too bad. But caution remains. And like I said, I'm thinking Bitcoin Platinum. Yeah, we need to set up a new fork, right? Bitcoin Platinum Classic node. All right. Well, we'll see what happens. As soon as I get off the stream, Bitcoin's going to hit like 8,500. So I'm kidding. But I am going to run here now and call it a stream. Just the quick takeaways. If you caught this towards the tail end, powerful moves up. I think the daily charts are showing some very nice breakouts on a lot of these alts versus Bitcoin, especially the big cap names, things like EOS, Bitcoin Cash, that sort of thing. But they're certainly extended near term. I'm seeing some divergences starting to show up, so I would be cautious about loading the boat and FOMOing in just right here. I would wait maybe for a little bit of a pullback. If anything, I think the move is probably due for a pause. This daily chart here is really what I'm going to be watching because of the reasons I outlined, the multiple confluence of levels that I'm looking at here at this resistance point. Sure, it could have that quick spike higher, but I'm looking at, can we sustain, can we hold above that point for more than a couple of days before rolling over? Ideally, personally, if it's going to break above, I'd rather see a little bit of a pause here, right below resistance, set up, kind of coil up, and that would let things cool off a little bit, and then that'd give it a lot more legs to just blast right through there from a technical perspective, because then it wouldn't hit these extreme overbought levels just as soon as it poked right over. So, I mean, ideally, a little bit of a pause, pullback from here, if it just was a mild pullback would be better, but, this could be an interesting turning point for the market. So let's see here. You want to look at Link real quick. I'll look at that one and then I will call it a day here. So looking at Link, yeah, I mean, it's still certainly worth watching because it's pulled right back to the 10 EMA on the daily. On the 4-hour chart, and we saw this little double top pulled back and just still making lower lows, lower highs. If you're still looking at it, I mean, the most I would give it at this point, if it starts to close below this on the 4-hour, what's that, around 26.4 or so, then it probably looks done from there. But me personally, I'm not in it anymore. I was during this brief little spike, as you guys know, but I'm looking at it from a pullback, but I want to see it turn the corner before I jump on this one, just because the macro trend is still down, making lower lows and lower highs. This certainly could just have been another lower high, and I want to wait for a better signal or a better setup before I do anything with Link. But okay, my friends, hey, well, thanks for watching. Thanks for jumping on this stream here. And man, good times, but we will see how this one ends up here. I might have to do another stream tomorrow or another market update at least, depending on what transpires over the next 24 hours. Take care, everyone. We'll see you in the next one.